Welcome to the part 2 of this conversation as we continue to speak about mental illness, mental health, and mental illnesses. And today I want us to pick up on this time I want us to pick up on the question of coping mechanisms. And now, what are coping mechanisms? So there are two kinds of coping mechanisms. One is good coping mechanisms of what you call adaptive coping mechanisms. So these are mechanisms that help you to deal with the stressors that you are experiencing. Okay, so the stress reaction, your body needs a manner of dealing with the stress reaction that you're having. And then we have maladaptive coping mechanisms. So those are the bad ones that if you use them, they only make the situation worse. So let's start with the maladaptive. Okay, so withdrawal. You withdraw from people. You say you don't trust people anymore, and you just want to handle life by yourself. Okay, so you become kind of self-sufficient. Sorry, that is one of the maladaptive one. You need people to thrive. 2, a lot of sleep, laziness. Okay, I'm not gonna do anything. Life is not working, so I'm gonna just be helpless. Okay, so that's one. 3, substance abuse, especially alcohol. Okay, that is a very strong one. We couldn't speak about the effects of alcohol for a long time, but that's very maladaptive. And you see, one of the things that alcohol does is one of the most important adaptive or coping mechanism that you can use is proper rest. When you take alcohol, it interferes with the quality of your sleep. Now, you usually sleep in 4 stages, and one of those stages, it's called REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, is very, very important for your brain. And when you take alcohol, what you do is you interfere with that stage of sleep. Okay, so alcohol consumption becomes problematic. Okay, now another one is pornography, masturbation, promiscuity when it comes to sex. All those are maladaptive. Okay, we have seen that even during COVID there was an increase in consumption of alcohol, and we have heard about aggression, domestic violence, and all that. So all these are maladaptive ways of trying to handle the stresses. So what can you do instead? Some of them things that you can do: sleep. Like, I can't emphasize how much you need to sleep, and sleep on a schedule. So the 24-hour cycle has existed for so long that your body has adapted to it. And so what you want to do is, your body has a rhythm that goes according to the 24-hour clock. So when you keep changing the sleeping hour and the waking up hour, you are making yourself more and more vulnerable to depression, to anxiety, to loneliness, to all that. Okay, so what you want to do is to ensure that you're sleeping on a schedule. Don't shift so much your sleeping time even on a weekend or your waking up time. So you want to try to stick to that. Exercise, so good. You know, exercise releases endorphins and dopamine and serotonin. These are hormones in your body that makes you feel good, more confident, and people seek this out in heroin and other drugs, whereas your body can produce them if you just take a walk, exercise. Okay, so these are very good. Talk to a friend. So have friends who genuinely care about you, and they're not ashamed if you start speaking about your emotional stresses. Okay, so people who genuinely care about you, people who want you good. All right, learn to say no. Learn to say no. Okay, don't say yes to every single invitation, and the first person you need to learn to say no to is you. Okay, so the more you spend time, let's say, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Pinterest, on social media, the chances of your depression, anxiety goes up. Okay, and so you want to limit the amount of time that you're using on Instagram, because when you feel more lonely, you spend more time on Instagram and on Facebook. This increases your depression and loneliness, so you spend more time on Instagram and you're in this cycle that you don't want to be in. Okay, so what you want to do is to learn to say no even to yourself, to every phone call that you've got to pick, to every WhatsApp message you want to respond to the emotion that will just want you to sit and be lazy. So learn to say no to yourself, and also to other invitations that could just interfere with the use of your time, because another very important manner of dealing with stress is the manner you use your time. You want to balance your day in such a way that you are enjoying your day. You have events, you have moments where you work and moments where you rest. Those moments where you rest are very, very important. If someone calls you during a moment of rest, don't be afraid to say, I'm busy now. Those moments of rest are really, really important, and you should treat them as something that is sacred. Okay, so that's very, very helpful. Read a book. Okay, get into a whole new world. that so that your mind can understand there's a whole new world. It can have distraction of its own because of the books that you're reading, and that could be very, very helpful. So I mentioned about talking to friends, and here I want to add talking to a therapist specifically. If it's too serious, talk to a therapist. Go get a counselor, get a psychologist, and have a conversation with. And finally, pray. Your religious spirituality is going to help you to as a protector against mental illnesses. Okay, so I hope that is helpful. See you next time. Pit stop. So now specifically, I just want to speak about how mental illnesses affect you or all of us at work, especially, and even at families. I'll touch on very briefly on that, and I hope the manner in which I'm going to handle it is going to be helpful. So now, especially let me start with men again. So men, we have a very strong need for accomplishment. And when that doesn't happen, there's a lot of mental issues that come with that. And one of the ways that we deal with that is displacement. So displacement is when you are not accomplishing something, or let me give a very practical example. Your boss tells you something that's very difficult, criticizes you, and that makes you feel a little worthless, And so what do? You go, maybe you take a drink on your way home to lower the self-awareness, right, of what you're experiencing, and then when you get home, you displace that anger towards your wife, and then your wife displaces that anger towards the children, right? And the children go to school and become bullies, or so now what they are seeing between their mom and dad is conflicts, and so they think that when you're faced with a problem, you go and also fight in school, so that's how that displacement works. Now, on the other hand, women often, not every woman, but women often tend to do this differently. Women tend to allow, it's what we call a type D personality. Most women tend to have a type D personality, where they don't want to face the aggressor. They avoid the aggressor. They allow the pain to consume them within, but the emotional energy of facing the aggressor is way too much for them, and so they avoid conflict. But now the problem is, when you want to deal with some of the stressors in your life, some of the mental illness sources, you've got to deal with the aggressor. You've got to stand up for yourself. Now, quite a number of women find this quite tasking, and so what they would prefer to do is avoid. And no wonder sometimes you find that many women are not in the top management positions, because to get to these top management positions is not just a question of patriarchy and misogyny. It's also because these positions are very aggressive, and women often tend to avoid those aggressive kind of positions. You look even at politics, the question you're talking about. Politics at the moment in Kenya is a very aggressive kind of field, and therefore most women will avoid that kind of field because it does not tap into who they are, right? But they will go into fields that tap into who they are, like nursing. The majority of women, it's not just by fate, it's because that's who they are majority of the times. And so there's a small minority of nurses who are men, because that's not who men are. But then if you go to engineering, you're going to find the majority of men there, because that's who they are. The men focus on things, right? Whereas women focus on relationships and on people. So that's how you might want to understand. So when you see your dad becoming aggressive and becoming impatient, withdrawing from the family, it is because that's what men do, and it's because they measure themselves according to self-worth. And we can speak about this for a long time, but I think for now we can stop with that.